Hey, welcome to Welly's World. I'm Matt Wellman. With me today on the screen is my very good friend. He is, a military veteran. He's a fantastic singer and a childhood friend of mine, Mr. Mike Fazio.
Hey, how's it going?
Mike's good enough to join us here today. Um, Mike has done quite a bit of performance and been involved with music on in several projects and things like that we talk about on Welly's World. But it wasn't his first career. Music wasn't his first career. So what I want to talk to you about today, Mike, is kind of how you got started in music, where the kind of the career path you went on, and then how you kind of found your way back to music.
Okay.
Okay. So when did you start playing?
When did I start playing? Well, I didn't actually seriously start to play until I actually joined that band with you and our other buddies for the eighth grade talent show.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I picked up a guitar first, like when I was really young, like 8. My mom had one of those, family classical acoustic guitars that nobody touched for decades, and it had two
Yeah.
strings on it, and so you just turn it until it sounds like something new. Nothing.
Yeah.
Um, but I messed around with that. My mom knew like one song that she showed me, and but I didn't really start like really getting into playing until my friends were involved and a band that I love was involved, and we wanted to get ready for a talent show around 8th grade.
Yeah,
So
which is right around the age group we're talking about. So if you guys hear me talking in class about my the first band I was ever in, well, guess what? Mike was a guitar player in this first band that I was ever in.
that's right.
So we had a lot of fun, and like you said, you started playing with your family. Your mom was who really kind of got you started playing guitar
Yeah. Well, she was
to
excited
begin
that
with.
right.
Yeah.
She was. I remember her saying she was in love with the E chord, just the sound of the E chord, and it was just kind of sad, but it was full. Like she was really in love with that chord, and I just remember her saying that, and it's the only thing that she really remembered from the guitar. But she was eager to show it to me when I pulled that thing out, and didn't stop messing with it for a week or so.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. So was guitar your first instrument?
yes,
Now, did you do band?
yeah, band. That's where I didn't intend on doing. I just moved to Riverbank from the Bay Area when I was in 6th grade, and I had no interest in really joining a regular band, school band, until again, like all my friends, there was going to be this Disneyland trip, and I mean, you're in 6th grade, and like this opportunity to be 4 guys to a room in this hotel at Disneyland. I was like, oh, I'm in. And my neighbor across the street played the trombone, so I wanted to join the low brass section, so I picked up trombone with him as well, and just shot off that way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, music has always been tied to like spending time with the people that were close to me that I loved. So
Well,
that was,
definitely.
yeah,
And I want us to be able to relate with that. The most fun I've ever had in music is with other people. It wasn't as fun when I was in college, stuck in a practice room by myself for hours on end. I miss that interaction that you're talking about. Um,
yeah, absolutely. I've kind of been in a lull with music lately, and somebody at my last job brought up a good point. She was talking about she used to play for her friends all the time, and she loved to play guitar. She loved to sing, and she's like, "Yeah, I haven't played for months." And then she kind of deduced there on the spot that she's like, "Oh, it's because all my friends are gone."
huh.
And so her passion for music kind of died with her friends leaving her. And I don't think that makes her any less of a musician or anything, but that's like really the part that it's the interconnectedness. Music is a language.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a big deal for
So,
me.
I mean, could you say that music has been a strong part of the building block of your community?
Of my community,
I mean, like maybe community's not a good word. Maybe I should say your like close family of friends.
yeah, it's always been there, and I think part of that is because I mean, when you're playing music with other people, like you get to connect on a level that you cannot do through speech, you cannot do through hugging you can't do through any other means. Like when you're playing music and you're in it with the person next to you, you feel something different. There's a spiritual aspect to music that is you cannot duplicate anywhere else. And on top of that, when you really get into, for me personally, like being in a band that's like bluesy or rocky or whatever, like you touch this place in yourself. You deep dig down and discover you meet yourself down there. You walk around with these, the person that you are, talking to each friend and each person like you are this person. You project this person. But when you get deep into music truly and you let yourself go and you let the fear go, you meet yourself, and you find out how you're beautiful. Like when you can actually express these things from deep down within, like that communication is just, it's incredible.
That's
And
that's great.
yeah,
I love how you describe that. Like
thanks.
you're just like letting yourself go, and you're getting rid of that fear. And that's something that, as when we were younger, the idea of being afraid of something, like, we didn't really fully understand what that meant. You and I talked about this earlier today. Was thinking we knew everything, thought we knew everything, and that first moment of wisdom was when we said, I don't think I know everything. In fact, I think I know very little. And then all of a sudden you get scared, and you kind of pull in tight to yourself.
Yeah.
But as soon as you're able to like accept that you don't know, and be okay with that vulnerability, that's like, it's really beautiful. And that's really what I think an honest performance is all about.
Yeah, that's a huge growing point when you stop thinking that you know, and then you start letting what's really there take over. I mean,
Yeah.
especially in music, that's where real beauty comes from in music. The people that let go. It takes courage to let go because you really don't know what's there until you let go. So it's almost like people are discovering who you really are with you, and that takes courage. That takes courage. I mean, it just
Yeah,
does.
totally. So, right out of high school, you went into the military.
Right.
Um, so Mike and I were very involved in music. As we said, we were in a band together. We were in the marching band together. At school, that was kind of our clique. We were in band. So when I remember, it's funny. This is going to air on 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I remember very shortly after that. That's when you came and said, I'm going to join the military.
Yep.
Um, so when that happened, it's not like music left your life.
Right.
How did you hold? In what part of your life did music play while you were in the military?
When I was in the military, man, music became my blanket. You know what I mean? Like, um, I mean, with like Matt, like with you and all the other friends, like as you know, like for me, my friends were my life. Like I associated so deeply with my friends and being with you guys and how much I loved you guys. Is that, I mean, without you guys, I was nothing, and I just felt like it's such a part of you. So to leave that and to join the military and to be in this institution, this great big thing. I mean, where I'm just a drop in a bucket. Nobody knows who I am, and I'm at the mercy of everybody else's plans and all the time. Music became a blanket, like a safety blanket for me. I mean, like anytime when I was able to listen to music, I would put it in there and I'd just be able to escape back to these times where I felt love or I felt any kind of emotion that would help me connect to who I was. Music it just kept me grounded. It was no longer I had no time to perform. I had a different goal in mind, and I had a new path in front of me, and music just there was no time for it. But listening to it, it's always been there. It's a way to express. Somebody else who was vulnerable on a CD who recorded something vulnerable. He gives you the opportunity to like kind of attach onto it and feel through him. Like that's the real gift of music. When somebody expresses something, somebody else who's listening who doesn't really have access to their emotions and their true self, their true being, gets to kind of piggyback on those feelings and go, yeah, man, yeah. And so when I felt like people weren't really understanding who I really was, I could put in Neil Young or whoever I wanted to listen to and just go like, yeah, like I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
Yeah. And a lot of students I know feel, especially when they're at school, it's not the first place they'd like to be, and maybe they don't feel like anybody understands them. But having that music that they can go home and listen to. Like you're saying, you can go listen to music. You can put your earbuds in, and really relate to someone who you don't have to be close with them. You don't. I mean, obviously, you don't know Neil Young, so but you can relate to the things that he's saying, and the feeling that you get from listening to his music.
Right. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the lyrics. You know, he emotes through a tone in his voice. You know, just an intention. And yeah, you know, yeah, like being in school. Like, I mean, of course, you don't want to be there. Some people do, some people don't. But you know, throughout life, you're going to be in fact, at least half the time, you're going to be in situations you have no desire to be in. And you know, it's part of who you are. Like, you gotta stand up for a while and then endure some pain and endure some suffering and get through it and do the right thing so that you can do the thing you want to do next. Mm-hmm. And music is just a big, you know, blanket in your off time.
Yeah, I love that description. It's your blanket. It makes you feel warm and fuzzy even when it's cold outside.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I would always have these earbuds, and when I was in the military, like I would try to sneak them in at any chance I got. I was just like, here, I'm in my little world, and I'd get all my assignments done. I'd do everything I had to do, but it was a lot easier because I had a little piece of my heart in my ears playing. You know.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's a big deal. So, tell me about the submarine.
Okay. It's just an example. I guess one of the last things I did, I was on a submarine doing some stuff, and we were down there for quite a while. Just for an example, like on the 30-day mark, I just kind of like, I'm a pretty put together, like, you know, I was like in the military, like a put together person, you know, soldier who was doing all these things, and on that 30-day mark, I kind of lost it for a while. I just felt like this dip into insanity. I just needed to see the sun. I wanted to go outside. I wanted to do something, and I don't know. I kind of went reclusive after that, and it's really strange. On a submarine, you have to do the least amount of work as you do in the military. I mean, there's nothing to do. You're transiting under the ocean, and nobody's really messing anything up, and it's just there's not a lot of work to do. And so you kind of lay in your rack like all day long. But the weird thing that happens is, like, you're laying there for like days on end, and so when finally like your chief comes up to you and says, "Hey, Faz, we need you to come do this," it's just like, oh, no. Like, I mean, the simplest thing, like, can you move these bags out of the hallway? It's just like just detrimental, you know. And everybody kind of started getting edgy, on edge with each other, and so when we started to ramp up to go do something, we had to become more active and had to get out of our racks that we were spending weeks in. And I got my headphones and I started putting them in, and it just enabled me to keep pushing through and doing all the things I needed to do. And, you know, at one point, even my officer, he was just like, he was noticing that I wasn't like in the group. Like they'd be talking about things here and there, but I was like always, you know, Foz is his own little world. He's got his headphones in. And he was saying, "Hey, Chief, do you think we should have Foz take out his headphones?" And, you know, so he's paying more attention. And like, thankfully, like my chief, like he kind of got it, I guess, in that moment where he was just like, "No, just leave him be." And it just helped me out. You know what I mean? It was a really tough place to be in a lot of really specific emotional, you know, ways that music could touch. And those headphones were just glued into my ears. You know what I mean? And it's just, I was really thankful for it.
Man, so yeah, it sounds like that claustrophobia mixed with sheer boredom, and like whenever you spend a lot of time with the same people, tensions are going to get high. You're going to get in arguments. You know, especially, you know, you can think about a small school. If you're with the same people for, you know, 8 years in one school, you're going to fight. It's like a close-knit family, and it's a good thing that your chief, or was it your chief, or was it another CO? So it was a good thing that your chief knew, hey, you know, Foz is doing his business. He's doing what he needs to get done, and this is helping him do his job and be successful right now. So I know as teachers we try and take that role. We're not always perfect, and certainly we make mistakes, but that's a really great example of just music keeping you sane, man. Really good. So, well, you got off of the sub. I know you were in Hawaii for a while, and at one point, I remember this day because it kind of blew me out of the water. You called me and said, "Matt, I'm going to be a musician." and you sent me your first song and said, "Hey, will you read my lyrics? Will you check this out? What do you think? You know, give me some feedback." What was that like? What was that like for you you know, jumping from this very strict military life over into uh, this more artistic lifestyle?
Um, well, it's interesting. I was in Iraq when I made the decision. Like I was coming up to on the end of my 8 years of service, and I was had a lot of time just sitting there in Iraq in my own little pod, and I just wanted to play and sing. I started to learn to sing, and it was really terrible. I mean, it was just awful singing, but I loved it. Part of me was coming to life, so I decided, I did everything I wanted to do in the military in those 8 years. And I was like, music's been there since I was a kid, since I was very young. I love music. It's at my core. And so when I got out, I decided that music was the way to go. And to answer your question, I mean, I had no clue what I was doing. Like, imagine this, like, especially as students now, like, you guys start off in some of you in preschool, and then you go to kindergarten, and then you go to elementary, and then you go to middle school, then you go to high school. Now you go to the military, and you spend 8 years in the military. You have been confined into somebody else's rules and road for your entire life. Everything that you know up to this point has been on a set of train tracks that you could not get off. And so finally, I'm 25 years old, and now I say music is the way I want to go. Music is inherently I mean, as an artist, you get a lot of free, like, do whatever you want to do time. I mean, you just do. It just comes with the job. And
Enough rope to hang yourself with a lot of times too.
exactly. And that's kind of what I experienced. I mean, so I got out of the military. I mean, it was really, I got out of the military, and I left the train tracks to the side. I had a little bit of savings from being in there, and I just kind of wandered. I had a goal in mind. I wanted to do music more than anything, and I put up demos. I worked hard at doing demos, and I practiced, and I did what I wanted to do. But the kind of the things that keep your life anchored, and the foundation, the things that your mom and dad should have taught you on your way up. Get up, make your bed, brush your teeth, do the things you have to do. Like, those things kind of fell by the wayside for me. And over time, they kind of caught up with me, and I realized that I had to spend more time learning to make sure that my root is there. Before you can enjoy, like, the leaves and the branches, you have to be rooted really well. And so for me, it was a big surprise going from this root that was given to me by school, my parents, and the military just being gone, and then me still on top wanted to be this big leafy, like, tree of music. And so I'm just like, that was the kind of, like, the biggest detrimental thing for me that I had to figure out. All this expression, all these feelings, all this emotion, and very little root.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of growing to do as a person still, before I could even make music something that I focused on full time. So.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college. College still has plenty of structure. It's a lot more free than the military, but I still talk with old college friends about when we left college. All of a sudden, there's none of this pre-planned structure happening anymore. Now it's like, well, we've been teaching you this structure for 20 plus years now. You should be able to do it on your own, and we frankly just didn't want to do it. We didn't, it was always there, so we didn't have to. We took it for granted, and so when someone wasn't doing it for us, and all of a sudden it's gone, we realized this loss of not only productivity but kind of happiness, because you've kind of gotten rid of boundaries for yourself that you need to make you successful. So that's awesome. So you got out. I know we had worked on with another friend on a set of demos for you. How long? What kind of an undertaking was that to record this? You recorded a 10 or 12 track demo CD. So
Yep.
What kind of work went into that?
It was those tracks. I'd been, like I said, right before I got out of the military, I started to really focus on. I wanted to do music, and I just fell in love with riff writing. Like, I would come up with something on the guitar, and I would just I'd get Logic Pro on my MacBook. I'd record it and loop it, and then put some real generic drum track underneath it, and then I'd just, like, practice singing these lines and these melodies over it and over it. and it was this great way of expressing myself. And it was just like, taking out the trash and getting in touch with who I am. And all of a sudden, I had like an entire disc's worth of demos. And then the range from just like these full out rock songs to these like slow kind of dream state songs and just everything in between, talking about, I mean, life, women, experiences, whatever, you name it. Like, it was just an outlet for all of it. And then I had these 12 songs over the course of, I don't know, like a year, 2 years. And Matt's buddy Nat, I asked him if he would produce them so I could get a demo together, and we spent a solid, I don't know how many days that was.
It was at least 30 days. We were working on it for a while.
Yeah, I remember I went to Fresno, stayed at your house, and I just plugged in and had some guidance from Matt and Nat, some other friends down there, and we recorded it. It was like a dream come true for me, just like to put all this out there. And I was pretty proud of it, and I liked a lot of the songs, and I got a lot of good feedback from people, but I knew that I had still a long way to go. It was a big learning experience, and I got like my first beginner songs out, and there's a couple good ones in there, but it was really the beginning of songwriting, and my voice and everything. So
Yeah. Well, and I hope that one thing we get out of this is, you always have room to grow, and even pros will go back and listen or look at their first work, so like one of your favorite musicians, Eddie Vedder. If Eddie Vedder went back and looked at his very, very early works, he's going to say, "Man, I was so young. This was so rough." It's not the well-crafted instrument of a 40-year music career creates. So there's so much growth to be had, and unfortunately, if it doesn't sound exactly how we want it to sound the very first time, sometimes we get frustrated and feel like we've failed in what we set out to do, when in reality that growth is a big part of success. We can call growth success all the time, is when you're improving at what you love. Even if you haven't made money at it yet, you're growing on your path. And I remember that time so fondly, because there was a lot of hardship going on in both of our lives at that point too, if you recall, which we won't get into. But that album was so insightful to me, because here's a friend of mine who took a completely different path, went into the military, decided to get out of the military and come record a 12-track demo, whereas I'd just spent the same amount of time in college performing, but I had half as much composing experience of my friend who went to the military instead. So that was a really big learning experience for me. Just seeing someone with that much drive just come out and say, "I'm going to do this, and I don't care what anyone else says." So good work, Mikey.
Sir.
Good work. So after this, you also you wanted to be in a rock band, so you did some auditions. Explain to me what an audition process was like for you.
Well, so I got out and I started working on my voice. My voice started to come along, and I just felt like, man, if I could just get a band behind me, somebody like just this group that could just express like with me, and like I had all these things to say, all these things to sing about, like I felt like I had it together. And so I started looking all over the country. Like, I was living in California, and I was literally looking in every state, Craigslist ads for like rock band ready to go, just needs a singer, like originals, like plug it in. And so like every day, like at least like 5 times a day, I was searching on Craigslist for a band that needed a singer. Like, we're ready to go, we just need you, kind of situation. And it took me all over. I was in Las Vegas, and I went out to LA, and I went to New York, and I just went over auditioning for these bands. And the process was basically like, here's some of our stuff. Here's usually they'd have an old singer that they sang over some of it on. Let's hear your take on it. And thankfully, I was pretty proficient with Logic, so I could just plug in their song, put it on Logic, and just take my chop at it. It was a learning experience. Like, as you know, some of the songs were not my genre, and so I really had to like dig into new territory. I mean, I could not sing some of this stuff. Some of the intervals were strange, and I just didn't. But I mean, it made me grow as a musician. And basically, the approach that I took to these interview or these auditions, that they all really went well. I really had my choice when it came down to like a lot of these. I took one of their songs and kind of tried my best to master it, and I took one of my favorite songs that I wrote and I took it with them. That was really simple and catchy, something that they could easily learn and have fun with, like on the first audition. And then I took a cover, usually Johnny Be Good, because it's like an old great song that people get excited when they hear it. So my arsenal was like, hey, I'm going to do your song that I worked hard on. I'm going to do my song that I think people like, and then here's this one that we could all just enjoy. And it kind of, as a, like, especially as a frontman, as a like lead singer, you got to get up there and you got to kind of show these guys that you have a plan, you have a reason for being there, and it puts everybody at ease. And so that's how I went about auditions. I just kind of thought about how I wanted to do it in the first place, and then when I got there, I just tried to be as mellow and more ears than anything while I was there, and it seemed to work out for me.
So you weren't there. I mean, you weren't there to shake up the ship, so to speak.
Right.
You wanted to make sure that because you didn't know these people. This wasn't like these people were already in your network and bank of people that you knew that you were kind of calling in a connection on. These were legitimately like cold calling. You were cold calling sales. Hey, I heard you need a singer. Guess what? Here I come.
Right.
So you wanted to make sure that these guys knew that you were fun to work with. It sounds like you accomplished that on all accounts.
Yeah, a few times. I mean, I was nervous. Don't get me wrong. Like,
oh yeah,
I especially in the beginning, I couldn't really move around the room, and my foot was just tapping like the entire time I was singing. My eyes were closed, and I just did my best, but just tried to be personable and be open, and it worked out. For the audition part at least.
For the audition part at least, yeah.
Yeah.
So you later in a couple different occasions were we talked about the front man. The front man is it's the person in the front who if one person's name in a band, that's the front man usually. So you're also kind of delegated to talking to other people on behalf of the band. So you end up in this leadership role. So I know you did this for a while with the group that you worked with in Las Vegas. What kind of stress, or what kind of experiences do you think challenged you?
Okay, well, in the end, it ended up, like, looking back on it, I spent a lot of time with this band in Las Vegas. I mean, we're still in contact, and it's like there was some real magic happening in the music. And the interesting part for me was I spent all this time in the military in the SEAL teams. And in the SEAL teams, it's a very specific way of running a group of guys. I mean, there's 16 people in a platoon, and it's run by a very specific way, down to like, hey, if you mess this up, you gotta like, there's like physical punishment, like do these push-ups, do this. Like if you mess up, like there's like go for a run, do this kind of stuff. And with this band, like I find it was a great experience, like meeting them and everything like that. And I instantly started to implement what I'd learned as a SEAL. Like, hey, okay, if you drop a drumstick while you're drumming, here's the rules with the pillar of paint. Pillar in our rehearsal space. Okay, if you drop a stick, it's 20 push-ups. If you miss this, it's 20 sit-ups. If you miss this, it's 10 kettlebell swings. And so I really approached it from this perspective of like, this is what I learned in the military, guys. Like, and it works. It works. So it worked, but it also, like, with artists in particular, like this, you're kind of putting two worlds together. And some of these guys are tough guys in the band. It wasn't just like they could handle it, but it wasn't optimal. Mm-hmm. And as time progressed, the problems that we'd run into is like people being late. People, I would think about, like, if we're gonna do this, guys, if we're gonna make it as a band, you should think of this as a job. How often are you late to a job? Never, right? It's a big deal. You get fired if you're late. So it was like worrying about things like that. It's like, especially with like 5 people, I discovered it's like, as some of you know, like having a relationship with one person is difficult. But being in a band, it's like you're in a 5-person relationship. And if one person is unhappy, the harmony is gone and the music suffers, and it's just, it becomes a really difficult situation. And the solution really is just like, you gotta really like find a neutral place and just open and just accept everybody's situations and try your best to just be this neutralizer for all these problems. And I mean, and that's on top of being like the front man and doing these things. So it's like it can get like pretty heavy, and if you don't know how to do it, it can kind of destroy you. And and it was kind of the case with this band. We, after a certain amount of time, we just decided to go our separate ways. Not because the music or anything like that, just because like we couldn't get on the same page. And a year went by, and we were like, guys, like we all just kind of came back to each other, like we missed this. Let's try this again. And when we got back together, I realized it was not so much me and my style or them and anything they did, but like like it got even deeper. I was like, how committed am I to this? Like, how deep do I want this, and how much fire do I have? Like, and then I realized as I got a little more mature, a little less pointing of a finger, and just more like looking in at myself, I realized that it was my like a lot of the hesitation coming back from the band was from this internal subconscious hesitation I had in myself that I wasn't aware of. So it's really like a multi-front thing of difficulty doing that. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of problem solving, and it takes a lot of self-reflection in a truthful way that's actually going to cause results. If you lie to yourself about what's wrong, you're never going to fix the problem. So you really got to put the microscope on, look for the problems, and look for the ugliest parts of yourself and expose it, so that you can say, hey, like, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to fix it. And so that harmony can ensue. Hopefully everybody has a good time, and people don't feel like they're in the military when they're in a band that's supposed to be the funnest job on the planet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I love your take on all this stuff. Mike, thanks so much for talking to me today, being here so that people can hear about your experience with music. I know it's you're one in a million, Mike. Coming out of the military, serving our country, and then coming into a place where you put your heart just on the line with what you do. So, do you have any places that we can hear you sing on the internet?
I have some older demos. I don't really have a lot of new stuff. I have a YouTube video of doing a cover of a Neil Young song. I really loved him. Just on my Facebook. If you want to check it out, I'll just post it to you if you want to repost it.
Okay, so yeah, we'll put any links to Mike's music here in the description. Again, Mike, thanks so much again, and everyone out there watching, thank you so much for watching Welly's World.
All right. Thank